Breaking news, we've just received word that Anne has decided to release one of her Patreon exclusive commentary videos to the public for the first time. We'll go live to Anne with more information. Anne? Thanks, Anne. Yes, that's right. I've been told that this video was previously only available on her Patreon and that she makes videos like this for all of her original songs. And apparently that's not the only thing on her Patreon. We'll have more updates on that later. For now, let's go to the video. Hey everyone, it's Anne and welcome to my Patreon exclusive director's commentary for the music video for Meltdown. Director's commentary, and this is the first time I'm formally saying that I'm the director of the video. I'm assuming you may have already seen my behind the track commentary video for the song itself. If you haven't, you might want to watch that one first just to learn a little bit more about the process of making and writing and producing the song, because here I'm not going to talk about that at all. I'm only going to talk about the video side of things. When I was working on the song with the producer, I did know that I wanted to do a music video for it, and I knew that I wanted to time the release for them to be close together. Unlike what I did with my last music video, Eulogy for a Ghost, which was way after the release of the song, this time I wanted them to be pretty close together. Finishing the song in February and having it release in April gave me some time to do the video in between, and I didn't finalize the release date for the song until we had also finalized the shoot date for the video. So after we had the shoot date, as long as everything was shot, I was pretty sure that I could get it edited and finished in the amount of time needed to release the video about a week after the release of the song, which is what ended up happening. I also knew that I wanted to try directing on this one, and I knew that it wasn't going to be one of my biggest budget videos, so that's another good reason for me to direct and edit. If I direct and edit, I don't pay myself anything for those jobs, so it saves me a little bit of money there. Oh no. This is auto-focusing on the emoji mask? What the... Hold on. You will not upstage me. Where was I? The video concept. So I knew I wanted this to be something a little on the simpler side for budget reasons, but obviously still visually attractive and professional, which I knew wouldn't be a problem because I was going to be working again with Justin, the DP, director of photography, that I've worked with a handful of times in the past, and he always does great work, and I love working with him, and I totally trust him, so he was the perfect person to work closely with for my first time as the director. But speaking of that, I'm saying that, but it sort of is my first time and it sort of isn't. If you count most of the covers that I've done, I was the director for those too, because I was the one that envisioned them and had the concept. And even where I was working with somebody else as a camera operator, I was telling them how I wanted the shot to look and how I wanted it to be framed and how I wanted it to be lit. They were just there helping me execute it. So in that way, I have been a director many times, but I've never been a director at this level, which means in those previous cover videos, sometimes it's only me doing all of the jobs. Sometimes it's me and one other person, and in those cases I do plan in advance, but I don't plan in advance as much as I did for this because there's not as many people that I have to organize and coordinate. It's just a little more relaxed, and those videos are less complicated too, so I'm able to keep more of it in a list in my head. Rather than for this video, I did do a lot of preparation beforehand. I wrote out everything that we needed, made a couple spreadsheets to reference on the day of to make sure we didn't forget anything and stuff like that. Because this definitely was not a case where I was thinking, oh, I'll figure it out in the edit. No, I can't rely on that because if I have to reshoot, that becomes a pain and it becomes expensive. So I needed to make sure that I had all the coverage that I needed to get to tell the story I wanted to tell on that day and not have to have any torturous editing sessions of trying to figure out what to do with this footage, trying to find the story later after editing it. So I kind of did like a storyboard and sort of pre-editing. There's always changes that happen in the actual editing process, but not big changes. I pretty much had like the structure and the coverage, different variety of shots that I needed, and when I would be using each shot, had that all planned out before. I think that the seed that became the concept of this music video actually started when I was recording the vocals for the song in my friend Tom's vocal booth. And I was doing those ad-lib takes with lots of yelling and saying crazy things. And one of the things that I did as an option was potentially opening the song with a little spoken line instead of starting right away with the music. And one of the lines that I recorded was 3, 2, 1, and we are go for meltdown. So we didn't end up choosing that to be in the beginning of the actual song, but I kind of liked it and I wanted to use it somewhere, so I had the idea of opening the music video with that. And the concept I had in mind was a scene where this tech, I was calling her in my notes, calling her Tech Ann, but it's like the Ann that's in the control room that's running this experiment, right? She's in the lab and there's an experiment going on. So she's the one that says it at the beginning, and then there's this experiment in an all-white room, because I was also thinking about the setting of the video and wanting to make sure that I came up with an idea that could be done relatively inexpensively, so I knew that I could rent a studio here in LA. There's a ton of them that have like the white infinity wall, or the white cyc as it's called, which I've used in several videos. I've been to multiple different ones throughout the city. I had never been to this particular one before, but it was nice, and I knew that things like that are very easy to find here, and so there's a lot of competition for the price, I guess I'll say, so it's easy to find a relatively inexpensive studio space rental if what you're looking for is that white wall. If it's something more elaborate or more unique, they're probably going to be charging more for it. That was why I decided to go with the white room and this sort of abstract concept of an experiment room, rather than trying to make it look hyper realistic and gritty, because that would be too expensive. But I also don't think that hyper realistic and gritty is my style anyway, so I'm very happy with the way it came out. To me, that's not a compromise at all. It's just a way that, you know, my situation ended up shaping what the final video is. So I had this idea that as the song went on, the experiment and Tech Ann would be getting more and more out of control, that things would be escalating, and then inside the room, the edit would be getting more chaotic as well. And I can even show you a screenshot of the note that was in my phone where I was first writing out my concept ideas. The first 3 things I had were the tech with the experiment gone wrong and the escalation of how it goes wrong. And then I had normal close, white infinity wall, milkshake in hand, and a slow zoom in, which is the opening shot, not of the video, but when the song starts playing, that's that first shot. And then the other thing that I knew I wanted to do was the train conductor, because that section in the bridge with a toot toot, all aboard and departing now, I mean, it's begging for it. And I knew that I wanted to use the phrase Hot Mess Express in some way, which, if you need a little refresher, that's where that's from, because I wanted to originally put those lyrics in the bridge in some way. I wanted to say Hot Mess Express instead of Struggle Bus, but I couldn't figure out how to make it work. So anyway, it got pushed back and it got used in the music video. I think now it's time for me to take you through the video bit by bit, and I'll talk about anything that comes to mind. We interrupt this program to bring you a special report from our official Patreon correspondent, Anne. Anne, what can you tell us? Thanks, Anne. The message Anne has for everyone today is just how important Patreon is to her. YouTube takes 45% off the top of all ad revenue, and because song covers are copyright claimed, an undisclosed to Anne and varying percentage of that remaining 55% goes to the original rights holders. The way to make good money on YouTube is non-copyrighted content, videos that are over 8 minutes long with ad breaks in the middle, which Anne's content clearly is not. That is why Patreon is so important to her and makes up well over half of her income. Anne hopes that if you enjoyed this video today, you'll consider supporting her on Patreon. She'd like to thank her current patrons and remind you that Patreon now has an option to follow creators for free on the platform, so you can get access to some exclusive posts without being a paid member. That's all for now, and back to you in the studio. Right, even as I'm looking at just this first shot, without even starting to play, I already have a few things come to mind. The first thing is the merch tie-ins. So the shirt that I'm wearing is a shirt that I sell. In fact, I have a ton of them in that closet back there if you would like one. Official Rayburn Labs approved uniform for the techs that run the experiments that go wrong. And then the other one that you may not notice is that on my laptop, I covered up the logo with a little sticker as well. And that's the one that has a little test tube with the music notes above it and says, Rayburn Labs established 2016. I wanted it to be clear that this was like a control room of some sort. You know, ideally, I would have loved to have like a huge wall with tons of screens, like a security guard security camera room type of thing, but again, creativity is required with a limited budget. So what I decided to do instead was go kind of silly with it, because I didn't know how to find like a big thing with flashing lights or a bunch of switches, or, you know, something that looks sort of spaceship technological. I didn't know where to find that, and I didn't know how to build it. And so what I ended up doing was a couple of kids' toys, and here's one of them. These are actually so fun to just switch and play with. It's kind of like a little fidget toy. Everyone on set was like wanting to press all the buttons, which is kind of funny because it is meant for children, but it was appealing to adults as well. So yeah, I still have this little one on my desk. I put together all these sort of desk office things and brought it to set the day of, knowing that I had to set it up somehow to make it look like a desk. And the one who did the actual arranging and all of the scribbling on the papers was one of my PAs, my production assistant, Orly. Super nice guy, and he made it look crazy. And it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. I just handed him a bag of stuff, and I was like, put this on the desk and make it look messy. And while I was getting my hair and makeup done over on the other side of the room, he was arranging the desk. That way, I didn't have to do everything. Right, so saying that made me realize that I did talk a little bit about how I was directing this time, and it was bigger scale than what I had done before, but I forgot to get into the actual specifics of that. So I talked about how before it would just be me, or me and one other person maybe. That's extremely bare bones. This time it was a little more similar to what you might expect in a normal crew. So it was me, my director of photography, DP Justin, 2 PAs, and then 1 woman doing hair and makeup for me. So 5 people total, including myself. It's a very small crew still, but it's a bigger crew than I had ever directed before. All right, I'll get back to the video now. And we are go for meltdown. I'm crying. So this transition from the control room into the experiment room is done with a whip cut or a whip pan, which is when you take the camera and you move it really fast to the side. It creates a blur, which then helps you transition into the next scene. So I'm using this as a tool because of my way that my control room is designed. I did not want to have to show anything on the screen, because if I was going to show actual footage from the experiment room on the actual computer screen and use the camera to record what's actually on the computer screen, that would mean that I would have to shoot and edit the experiment room footage before, potentially on a different day than the control room footage, and getting a whole crew back together for a second day, and or using 2 separate locations on 2 separate days costs more money. And I didn't want to do that. I really wanted this to be a 1-day shoot. And I also did not want to do VFX, visual effects, like CG, eye imagery on the computer screen, because the other option, if I wanted to show something that I didn't have at that time on the screen of the computer, would be basically making the computer screen a green screen and then later imposing the experiment room footage on top of it. But I actually studied a little bit how to do that back when I was in college, and it's not very fun, and I think it's difficult to make it look real. So if I wanted to be satisfied with the way it looked, I think I probably would have had to pay someone to do VFX, and I didn't want to do that either. So what I'm doing instead is like a little, movie trick by showing the point of view of the tech looking at the computer and then whipping over to the experiment room. It implies, and the audience understands, because they're intelligent, that this is what she's looking at. At least I hope it comes off that way, because that is my intention. And this shot right here was, like I said, one of the first shots that I had in mind when I was coming up with the concept for this video. I definitely wanted the milkshake in the hand since the lyrics mention it. I also wanted to try to have a cohesive color scheme in this video, and what I decided on was blue. And you could say that it's because if you're melting down, maybe you're feeling blue, and that is sort of it, but it's sort of also just because I wanted to do blue. This song just seemed like the color blue to me, which is why I used blue text in the album art too. Not because of it's blue sad, but I don't know, it's just blue. I can't explain it any better than that. So this kind of continues the story of the tech Anne, who is really bored at her job or hates her job. She's not paying attention, and she accidentally sets her coffee, which says "I hate Mondays" on it, down on a ominous button, and then it turns red, but she doesn't notice. And I like to think of that button as the gaining consciousness button. So I'm thinking when she hits that button on accident in the experiment room, that's when things start to go wrong. So that's why right after this shot, when we go back to the experiment room, we see experiment Anne, her head snaps over to that milkshake, and she throws it out of her hand almost involuntarily, like, what is this? And I don't need this. And what is this doing here? So we start out the video with just the normal clothes, that's what I call this blue sweater look, and the tech. That was how the experiment was supposed to run. Maybe she was supposed to have a little milkshake and have her little meltdown or something like that. That was what the experiment was supposed to be in my mind. But then this button gets hit on accident and the experiment itself starts to melt down. So as we go further through the video, that's when I start incorporating different outfits and changing the setting a little bit. So in this shot, she's gained consciousness. She's looking around the room. She's wondering where she is. What is this weird white room with no windows and no doors? Like she's in a void. And then this is the introduction of our security camera angle. So for this angle, I rented a fisheye lens for the camera. So that's what's giving it that fisheye effect. Because I couldn't have the giant wall of camera feeds in my control room, I did want to incorporate at least one security camera in some way. That way it also really drives home the message, I guess, that this is what the tech is monitoring and this is what she's seeing going on. And a couple, I guess, little Easter eggs in this shot, which some of you have already noticed. The date on the camera feed is the date that the song was released on streaming. And the time code that you see in the top right corner is the exact same time code as what's on the video. So if you're watching the video on YouTube, you'll see that the time exactly matches with whatever time is actually on the video. I feel like I did a bad job of explaining that, but I think that you know what I mean. So that button, the red flashing button, is actually like a pushable battery powered light, LED light, and it has one of those little remotes. And so I had one of my PAs just off camera with the tiny remote, because the light, I was hoping that it would, but it didn't have like a flashing mode on it. So what I had to do instead was just have them turn it off, on, off, on, off, on. And that's why sometimes it's maybe not the most consistent rhythm. Also, you can kind of see here in the foreground, like in front of the computer keyboard, those colored file folders. If you watched my studio building vlogs, those are the same file folders that I have in my filing cabinet in the studio. I just grabbed a couple extras to use as props here. Also, you probably can't really see it, but behind me in the background, there's a metal shelf up against the wall, and on that shelf is a big package of cups, and the cups are the same blue and white cups that I'm using at the beginning of the video to be the milkshake. So that was a little hidden Easter egg too. You get your cup from the shelf and you give it to the clone, and then you start, or something like that. So this would be the point where I would say the meltdown is starting to escalate even more. All of a sudden, like, she's laying on the ground. That's weird. She's not supposed to be there. And then she has this kind of switch glitch back and forth between different outfits. To bottle up your feelings, if I could, that little jump cut there is also introducing the glitch idea. And then this other outfit here with the big fuzzy coat was sort of like my messy clothes. She's a mess. She's a disaster. She doesn't look put together. She's not in her normal clothes anymore. Right, so she's noticed the security camera. All of a sudden, she's pulled out a step stool from nowhere, and she's trying to get closer to investigate. So this step stool, if you can kind of see it, it has paint stains on it. That is because that's my step stool from home, which I used when I was painting the living room out there white, and also when I was painting this room for the eviction notice music video. Right, so the tech at this point finally notices that something is up because the subject of the experiment is looking right at her in the camera, and that's not supposed to be happening. Then right after that, we have another escalation of the meltdown. This is the party explosion scene. So I'm in this crazy, fun, over-the-top dress. All of a sudden, the lighting has changed, and there's balloons and there's streamers all over the floor. It's like as if, you know, a confetti cannon exploded, or like, you know, Party City exploded all over the room or something. So this was just kind of my idea of how to incorporate even more chaos into this white room by adding like the colorful stuff and by changing the lights and changing the outfit, of course. But it's still in my blue color scheme. It's not until even a little bit later that I add another color in to try to escalate it even further. I love this dress. This dress was rented and I'd had it saved for a really long time, but I knew it had to be just for the right occasion because it's something that is so wild and out there that I personally would probably never feel like wearing it normally. So it had to be something for a video for sure. And I think it's absolutely perfect for this because it kind of, to me, has a little bit of a clown vibe. And for this, I feel like these blue light scenes are sort of like the sad clown. It's not super easy to see until we get closer up, but in this dress, I also have like a sparkly teardrop shaped gems on my cheeks and like a tear track sparkly, glittery makeup going down like this. So it's kind of like a very stylized, glamorized interpretation of a meltdown. It's kind of like a clown, like I'm sad, I'm melting down for your entertainment. So it's kind of self-aware in that respect. And a couple people also said they felt like the dress was Alice in Wonderland-ish too, which I totally agree with. And I think it's like a mix of Alice meets the Mad Hatter, which is cool. That doesn't really... I do totally agree that the vibe is there, but it wasn't something I was consciously connecting to the concept of my video in any way. But, you know, if you want to add your interpretation and make me seem smarter than I am, you totally do that. This is also when I introduce more movement of the camera. So prior to this, pretty much all of the shots were just static. The camera was on a tripod, locked down, no camera movement. But as I wanted it to feel more and more chaotic, I wanted to have the camera moving to contribute to that feeling. So in the blue light scene and also in the pink light scene, which we'll see later, I have a couple takes where I was just moving, snaking all around the room, and the camera was just following me handheld. So I told him, you know, I don't want it to be smooth and gliding. I want it to be kind of shaky and chaotic and a little bit blurry and coming in and out of frame. Because that's how we're also translating that the situation in the room is getting more and more out of control. Oh, also, let me just go back to talk about, because I mentioned the balloons. The balloons were stuck to the wall. This was the idea of my two PAs. Love their idea. While I was over changing my hair and makeup and outfit to get ready to shoot these sections, I told them, I handed them again a bag of streamers and balloons and stuff, and I told them, like, make it look like an explosion went off in here. So they did. They covered the floor with stuff exactly as I wanted, and they also had the fun idea to tie a couple streamers to balloons and then use a little tape loop to stick the balloon to the back wall. And I think it's a fun little touch. I like it a lot. There was an air conditioning unit in the corner, so when you look at it on screen, it's the top right corner. That's where the air conditioning was. So you can see that the strings on those balloons that are close to that are moving a lot more than the ones on the other side are, which is unfortunate. I wish they would have all been blowing the same, but that's such a little nitpicky thing. Also, a couple of the balloons that are on the floor in that corner, they had to be taped down to the floor too, because the air conditioning was blowing pretty strong and those balloons kept wanting to come towards me. They were always like trying to escape from that corner because the wind was blowing them. Oh, another little Easter egg, I guess, is that when I'm in this blue dress outfit, I'm wearing some rhinestone sparkly boots. Those are the same boots that I'm wearing on the album cover of the Everywhere and Nowhere music, the Everywhere and Nowhere album cover. That's what I wanted to say. Have you ever noticed how a lot of my Easter eggs are because I reuse things because I can't always be buying new things? I love that. That didn't really start out as intentional, but now it kind of is, and I love doing that, and I love when I see that somebody notices that I'm using something from another video. So the shaking was fun. The shaking was an idea that I initially had when I was thinking about how can we show that there's escalating craziness in the experiment room and things are really going wrong. So it was fun to do because I had people grabbing the table legs on the floor and grabbing the legs of the chair that I was sitting in and just shaking them. And as you'll know, because I'm sure you've already seen the video, the shaking gets more and more violent as we go on. So it was pretty fun to record these shaking takes while we were shooting these control room scenes. This control room scene, I should say. This was the first scene that we shot of the day. And then we moved over to the white screen, which was just on the other side of the room. When we were shooting these, I also got a couple close-ups of my face in these shaking situations. Just kind of me looking around, panicked, and then getting more and more panicked as the shaking increases. Just in case I wanted to use those shots to really emphasize her emotions when I was editing the video. I ended up not wanting to use them, but in the close-up, since you couldn't see the shaking of the table, I actually had people shaking this stuff in the way back background instead. So somebody was shaking that light that you see over my shoulder, and it's a very cool effect. I wish that we also could have had that light shaking in the back during these wide shots, but unfortunately I just did not have enough people on my crew, because I had me on camera, the DP behind the camera, and then one person shaking my chair and two people shaking either side of the table. So there's not enough people to do all the shaking that needed to happen. But I think that the effect, it still comes across even without the background shaking. There's the introduction. I think that's the introduction, unless I missed a previous shot of the pink room. And right after that, introduction of the train conductor, Anne. So I've definitely said this a lot, but escalating, that's what I was thinking about as I was planning out the video. So the introduction of another color shows that, something else is definitely wrong, because everything was supposed to be blue. And then the introduction of the train conductor, of course, which is like a whole nother character, a whole nother outfit that's showing up. And she is the conductor of the Hot Mess Express. When I was originally thinking about what I wanted to do for this video, I really wanted to have like a fake train or a real train for this part, and be like sticking my head out of the train engine window. I thought that would have been really lovely. Or if I would have been able to have like a shot of the train engine with multiple places for me to stick my head out, and then I would do like a shot where the clones were sticking their head out of multiple places in the train engine at the same time, like to do the toot toot, for example. I did try to potentially find a train location, but didn't end up going with that because I decided to do the whole thing with this white background. I think maybe if I had conceptualized the video a little bit differently and had more variety of shots, or if I had found a way to somehow bring like a freestanding toy, like playground toy-ish train into the white room, that would have been amazing. I would have loved to do that. These train conductor shots are not very much of the video anyway, so for the money and time and effort that I would have had to spend on getting that, I'm not sure that it would have been the best use of my time, because of course I was also the producer of this. So I was finding the location, I was hiring the crew, I was getting all the wardrobe, I was getting all the props together. Well, that's more than what a producer would do normally, but the thing about like finding a location or finding a train, that would probably be something that a producer would be doing. So that was also on me. And then I did mention this in my little Instagram reel video talking about getting ready for this shoot, but in case you didn't see it, I will say I made this cardboard sign the day before the video shoot, and the little small S at the end of Express, it was on purpose. I wanted it to look, not too good. Wanted it to look like a little bit of a hot mess, So it's that thing when you obviously like run out of room because you didn't plan the space. I wanted to make that, but I wanted it on purpose, like as a gag, visual gag. So I I see that little detail, and it's something that makes me happy about this video. Also, you know, the jumping around, the cartwheeling, just showing that she's going more and more crazy. This is the introduction of the clones popping up and glitching around the room. This setup was kind of like an epiphany that I had as I was planning the video, because I was trying to think about what else can I do in this space, you know, how can I show that it's getting more chaotic, and I thought, who doesn't love the clones? I definitely wanted to incorporate the clones in some way, because you can hear them very present in the audio, but up until now, you know, they hadn't showed up on screen together. And it is not easy to do this type of splicing screens together, if that makes sense. So what I do, the split screens in the videos with the black lines, it's much easier to shoot that because you don't have to have as big of a space to shoot in. Everyone can be standing in the exact same location with the exact same lighting. You don't have to worry about them accidentally overlapping with each other. But when you're gonna visually put them into the same exact frame with nothing in between them to divide, you have to make sure that everywhere is well lit. You have to have a big enough space to be able to stand with space in between the different versions of you. And also you have to be mindful of the shadows. So if you'll notice, the shadows on the floor, they never touch, they never cross, they had to be far apart. So when I was editing, that was something that I was really spending a lot of time with on these parts, was finding different takes, different poses and different motions that aren't overlapping each other, and where the shadows don't overlap each other either. But yes, this is where we see all the different versions of Anne that glitched into this room so far. Now they're starting to appear together. And that was the first time that we see the party dress outfit with the normal lighting. And back in the control room, more shaking. The shaking is more aggressive, and I'm pressing escape, escape, escape on the keyboard. The cuts, the editing style at this point are also getting faster and more frequent. And at this point, instead of cutting on the actual beat of the song, I'm cutting to the background vocals. Let me show you right here. So there's a couple examples of this in this later section of the video. But if you watch closely, if you watch frame by frame, these shots where the clones get very close together or they're moving towards each other, they are cut right before the shadows hit. It was very intentional how I set it up. So what I did basically was I did something called masking around each of the figures. So it was like cutting out kind of around the frame and the shadow of one of them. And as I move frame by frame, I adjust the mask to move with me. The mask is like, it's like as if you were to cut it out with scissors and then place it on top of the other shot. So my mask is moving, and like right as it's about to hit the other one, right as those shadows are about to hit each other, they're like this far away, and that's when I cut. So that is something that I did for myself, also to have to avoid doing visual effects, because if they were to overlap in any way, that's like an extra sort of work that you would have to do. You have to cut it extremely accurately. You have to go frame by frame, and maybe you have to sprinkle some other little effects on there to make it look realistic, like they are occupying the actual same space and one is crossing in front of the other. And again, I was trying to do this entire edit myself to try to avoid paying a VFX person. This masking thing, you know, cutting it out and moving it like I'm talking about, that sort of is VFX. You know, splicing these two shots together, that's light VFX, but that's something that I feel comfortable doing. This is probably one of the best shots for you to see that teardrop clown makeup that I was talking about. I did tell my makeup artist sad clown, you know, that was one of the references and like the photos that I gave her. Also, I love how the colors of this dress look on the white background. In the colored light, you just obviously the color of the light changes everything, so you can't really see them, but I think the colorist did a really great job supporting my blue color scheme. I had told him, you know, blue is important in this video and I want to pull it out. I really want it to pop, and I think he did a great job. I just love how this dress looks on camera. I know I already said that I love this dress and it's perfect for this video, but I really, really love this dress and it's perfect for this video. These little glitchy popping up of the clones moments, I played around a lot with those in the edit. Originally, I didn't have so many of them. I only had 2 on screen at a time. That was the max. And here in some places, I did manage to squeeze in 3 at a time. And I also had them, it was more cutting just on the beat of the song rather than like a bum, 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 where they kind of overlap with each other. So instead of like having 2 on screen and then cutting to 2 different ones on screen, I have them kind of like overlapping in a way. So it's not so much a cut as it is like it's like popcorning, if that makes sense. That was a note that I got from the DP. So when I did my rough cut of the video, I sent it to several different people and just got their feedback and got their notes, because I, as the editor, get, you know, so far into the zone that I do need to have trusted people with fresh eyes look at it and, you know, tell me if it makes sense or tell me what seems weird or what doesn't work for them. So that was one of Justin's notes for me, and I think that was a great note. I totally agree, and I was able to make it even more chaotic by spending that time to fit those puzzle pieces together and adjusting those masks, cutting them out just so, making sure they didn't overlap each other, cutting right before they collided, stuff like that. And this with the shaking is so great. As I was getting out of the chair, I accidentally pulled on the cable and they just do this perfect slow fall. It was so great. It was not on purpose, but when that happened, everyone on set was like so excited. They were like, yes, that's so perfect. And also I want to point out here, you may be able to see the coffee is shaking so violently because this was the most shaking that we did, and it was shaking a lot. The coffee was sloshing all over the table. It was like getting on the papers. It got in my computer keyboard, all on the outsides of the mug, all on the desktop, of course. And actually, if you go back to the beginning of the video and you look at the close-up of the mug, when it gets set down on that button, you'll see that it has a bunch of coffee stains on the outside of it. And that is because that close-up was shot after these shaking scenes. So the outside of the mug got all dirty because in the shaking, the coffee sloshed over the side. And when we were recording that close-up, they stopped me and they were like, wait. The coffee mug is all dirty. Do we want to clean it off? And I was like, no, I think actually, because I think this tech hates her job and I think she's kind of a slob. I mean, like, look at her desk. It's a mess, right? It's a disaster. Oh, did I just quote the lyrics of my own song? Yes, unintentionally, kind of. This flashing red light overhead is actually a light that I use to light my regular videos sometimes too, and I'm actually using it today to light the side of my face here. It's this bar light. It's a RGB LED light, and this side of it is a white light and this side of it is colors, and it has like these different sort of patterns on it. It has like, it'll do a red and blue like police lights, or it'll do like flashes like lightning, and it has, you know, a flashing red light thing too. So I had one person holding up that light there in the corner. I had another person with a little remote for that little puck light, doing that as fast as they possibly could. And that was how we created this last shaking moment. But it's not the last that you see of her, because later she pops up in the experiment room. So my idea here was that things have gotten so crazy that, you know, she tried to escape, but it was so out of control that she somehow got sucked into her own experiment. She tried to run out of the room, but it was too late, and she just pop, all of a sudden she's in the experiment room with the rest of them. So this is, you know, her reaction at suddenly finding herself in that room. She's got another clone looking at her, and then later she pops up holding a couple of the props from earlier in the video too. This was one where the cut between the different videos was so close together, but you can look at it closely and they do not overlap, they do not touch. They almost touched though, it's so close. I'm super happy that I was able to squeeze as many of these in here as I was, with just a little bit of, you know, creative masking. I keep doing this with my hands, but that's because, like, that's what the mask looks like, you know, it goes around me like this. So there she is with the milkshake cup. And then in a second, she's going to have that Hot Mess Express cardboard sign. There it is. This throwing the streamers is, let me see, it's going to come up again. There it is. So that was also an idea from my two great PAs, the ones who designed my messy desk and the ones who made the Party City explosion on the floor here. I had, you know, those rolls of like the typical party streamers, and there was a lot left over because the floor was already covered. I mean, couldn't put any more on there, but they timed it so perfectly. I love this take, which is why, of course, it's why it made it to the final video. But there's one on one side, one on the other, and they were kind of just looking at each other. And when I did like a big motion with my arms, they threw them overhead and they just made such a perfect arc crossing the screen. Yeah, so I love that. That was such a great idea from them. It wasn't part of my original vision, but I'm so glad that they came up with it and so glad that they told me about it. They just fall so beautifully, you know, and it's that super light papery material, so it just it stays in the air for so long. And then for the end of the video, we have kind of calmed down and we find her back in the normal clothes, back with a milkshake, but this time, you know, sitting on the floor. So she took her minute to melt down and now she's okay. And this footage that I used for the credits, there is a shot of this early on in the video when she first gains consciousness and she's wandering around the room. There was quite a long take of me walking all over the room, looking in all different directions. So this is just a little snippet of that I decided to use. And the audio that you hear under it is a little a cappella from the song. So if you turn the volume up, you can hear that. And of course, there's all those special thanks names. That is you, so thank you again so much. A special thanks to you. And that takes us all the way through the video. And it's a good thing too, because my camera is about to die. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I've been talking for a long time, so probably pretty long. And it's because this is what I do, and I love what I do, and there really is so much to talk about. There's so much that goes into it, and to be able to tell you my thought process and share all of these little details, it makes me so happy. I hope that you can tell how happy it makes me. Thank you so much for watching this. Thank you for supporting supporting me. Thanks for being here. I am so glad that you all are part of my community. If you have any more questions, please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. I'll see you soon. I'll see you around. One final message from Anne before we finish our broadcast. Anne would like you to know that she knows that not everyone can support financially, and that is okay. She wants you to take care of yourself first, always. She would also like to remind you that the completely free ways to support, such as subscribing on YouTube, following on social media, liking, commenting, sharing a video, or simply watching or listening, are also extremely important. She's grateful for each and every one, and she could not do this without you. That's all we have for tonight. For Clone News Network, I'm Anne, signing off. We'll see you next time you rewatch this video. Good night.